Welcome to Quick Shots, a short format traditional archery podcast, where we introduce you to some of the world's most influential traditional archers, and occasionally, some random dudes. Help keep this content ad-free by supporting us on patreon.com/archerygeek. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, archerypass.com, for all your traditional archery needs. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Quick Shots. I'm your host, Mick Chambers. I'm here with John Wert today. And I got to tell you, John, man, ever since I saw you at Lancaster Classic, I've been like, I was going to make a joke and say, if that dude can do it, I can do it too. But honestly, you are so awesome. And that's kind of where I first saw you. And I thought, how does this guy keep it together? And he's so good. He's so calm. He knows all the archers. I thought, man, that was really good. So you're kind of a little bit of a hero of mine, to be honest with you. And I know that's I know it's weird to hear. And people who who don't do stuff like this probably don't think of you that way, but I certainly do. I think you do a fantastic job at Lancaster every time you're there at the Classic. If people don't know, there's lots of video, John doing some stuff there. So
thank you. I got that role by default because not a lot of people want to do it. And I guess I wasn't scared of it. Obviously, I'm no professional and it's easy to see, but I'm not scared to do it. And I really enjoy it. And, at Lancaster Archery, you're in the middle of it. Like, it's a really neat stage. Not only that production, I mean, that production's kind of a metaphor for the whole thing because that's the big stage. But honestly, at Lancaster Archery, you're in the middle of archery. You're at the center of it. And you see all different aspects of archery. You're working with manufacturers, you're working with customers, So I did that for 10 years, right, every single day. Not just every day. I spent a lot of weekends doing it too. We traveled all over the country. I've been out of the country. So anyway, long story short, Lancaster Archery is a big stage. So that prepared me to not be afraid to be there and talking about it. But also nobody else wanted to do it. And for a long time, honestly, Rob would not have allowed anyone else to do it. And somehow he trusted me. And so I was given the microphone, and now I love it. It's fun. I'm surprised they keep asking me back. So.
I'm not going to lie. I mean, this is 100% truth. I've talked to a lot of archers on here and guys that have been on the stage, and they say when work comes to talk to me, that's when I start freaking out. They really get nervous about that part, and you're putting the pressure on them. And I think it's just fantastic. I think everything you guys do there, I think you're a big part of that show. Can I call it a show?
Yes, it's a huge production. You should see how many people are behind the scenes in the production. There's a whole couple of trucks that are parked behind that wall with TV screens and, wires, and, they're producing a high-end sporting event, coverage. And there's a lot more than just me saying dumb things in a microphone. There's a lot of people involved, and it's a high-pressure situation for everybody who's putting on the production. So they're doing a fantastic job. And the funny thing is, I started at Lancaster in 2010. We put a remote controlled camera on the wall in 2010 for the Classic. It was filmed in a room the size of the finals were in a tiny room.
Yeah.
And we put this one camera in the corner that we could control with a remote control. And that was the peak of sophistication for the production. From 2010 to 2022, that became something that was, I was sitting a few feet away from Brady. Every spectator was within 20 feet of Brady Ellison as he was shooting the finals.
That's cool.
Now it's totally different. Now it's way bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, and you've met a lot of great people. I didn't bring you on here to talk about that though, Lancaster. That's kind of how I know you. And I want to get to know this guy because, you're doing something special. I think you're doing something amazing. And I've enjoyed it. I think it's made it better. But what I really want to do is I want to get to know you. I want to get to know the archer, and see what you're doing. So if you wouldn't mind, if you kind of go over sort of your origin story and tell us, how did you start in archery?
I enjoy telling this story, and it's a story with just a couple of different phases and a couple of like sort of accidental pivot points in archery for me. So the first pivot point was I grew up hunting and fishing and in a pretty rural part of Pennsylvania. And so I loved to hunt and fish. My father will tell you, if there was a season for spiders, I would have hunted spiders. Like all I wanted to do was hunt, go hunting with my dad and his buddies and go fishing. And I had a couple of really good friends who we did a lot of that together. But my dad was a deer hunter and hunted with a gun. He was like a lot of guys from the 60s and 70s who hunted deer. Mm-hmm. They thought they were pretty serious about it, but it's nothing like people think about it today. Right. We're so deep into this. They just, lined up in orange coats and drove deer and, shot small bucks. And it was a totally different time, much more innocent, I think, as far as hunting goes. But anyway, I loved it. And, being around the woods near my house, I started seeing bow hunters and I started seeing their tree stands and I didn't know anything about it, but, hunting all the time and coming across their stand, nobody that went to my hunting cabin used a tree stand. Nobody bow hunted. So I was really curious about this. And I got, maybe when I was like 15, I got for birthday or something, a Jennings Black Lightning, old magnesium riser compound bow, shot it with my fingers and a Saunders plastic tab. And, that's where it kind of started. And through high school was bow hunting with that. And then my dad had this old wing hanging on the wall. It's a wing Falcon, I guess about 47 pounds. Mm-hmm. And a couple of books I picked up. I think I got a book from Jim Rebuck's Table. He runs a company called J&M Traditions. You've seen him at ETAR.
Yep.
And he used to have this table set up at the farm show in Harrisburg. And I think I got Fred Asbell's book there. And I picked up Fred Bear's Field Notes. And those two books made me curious about traditional archery. And this old bow hung on the wall in my dad's room. And it was always kind of in the back of my mind. That's what I wanted when I was thinking about bow hunting.
Right.
So sometime end of high school, beginning of college, I took my compound bow into Baker's Archery Supply in Halifax and I traded it in. They gave me a gift certificate and I bought arrows for the recurve bow. Mm-hmm. And maybe a backpack, I think, with the credit from my compound bow. And that's when I started traditional bow hunting. I was late teens, early 20s. So that was the beginning. And then in my early 20s, I moved to Salt Lake City. And a couple things happened in Salt Lake City. One, I went from living a pretty rural life shooting in my yard to in Salt Lake City, it's hard to have room to shoot in your yard. So I would spend my nights after work at Salt Lake Archery. And I would go into Salt Lake Archery. And for people who don't know, Hoyt and Easton are in Salt Lake City. Gold Tip is in Utah. Mm-hmm. So when you're shooting at the archery shop, the only archery shop at that time in the city, you start bumping into people who shoot Olympic recurve bows,
Yep.
compete with bows, shoot compound bows competitively. So I started rubbing up against the target archery world in Salt Lake City, shooting with guys from Hoyt and Easton that would come
Wow.
into the shop.
Wow.
I could name drop, but like Logan and Rio, Logan was in there a lot when he worked at Easton. Just lots of pros would show up, and we would have the Utah State tournament, and then a whole bunch of pros were right there shooting states next to me. And I was shooting at the time I had a pronghorn longbow from Herb Mealand in Wyoming, and it was like 55 pounds, and I was shooting the state indoor tournament with it. Wow. And struggling.
Yeah.
But that's when I started bumping up against all that. And then the final kind of pivot point, and like I was really heavily into traditional archery, and I ran the traditional league at Salt Lake Archery on Thursday nights, and I would, organize it and give out prizes, and I loved it, but I was still had a lot to learn. And then the final pivot point was I was doing home mortgages. I was a loan officer in Salt Lake City. Mm-hmm. In like 2007 through 2010. And at that point, the market had crashed. Me and my buddies would sit on the internet looking for jobs we would rather be doing than trying to do home mortgages. And I saw somebody leaving a special position at running trad tech archery for Lancaster Archery Supply. Cool. I saw him resign on stick bow. Uh-huh. And so I was sitting at my desk trying to refinance people who couldn't qualify to refinance. And I sent an email to Rob at Lancaster Archery Supply. I said, hey, this is my background. I'm going to be moving to Pennsylvania pretty soon, which was kind of a lie at the time. I just thought maybe it was time to move back to Pennsylvania. And like 3 weeks later, I flew home and interviewed. And then in 2010, started with Lancaster Archery Supply. And that's where it really went from somebody who cared about traditional archery and had done it for a while to like a PhD in archery when you're there doing it every day.
That's amazing. That is amazing. That's a long story, man. That is just unbelievable. I had no idea about that. That's crazy.
It's funny how it happened, and I really never expected to work in archery. But then one thing leads to another, and you're there, and it was a neat place. And, it was definitely the best job I ever had. At the same time, a few years into it, I realized that Lancaster was a big company and had a lot of different priorities.
Yeah.
And I could do a certain amount in the traditional archery and barebow section that I kind of worked in, but there were a lot of other priorities, and sometimes those priorities were pushing back against what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted to create something that was truly mine. So I left in 2020, just at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, I left Lancaster Archery Supply and started out kind of working on my own project. And since then, I've been doing some sales and some different jobs leading up to pivoting back into archery pretty soon.
Yeah. We're not talking about that today. You told me to come talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's an open secret at this point, but I want to come back and talk to you in maybe a couple of weeks about that a little bit further.
Oh yeah. You're always welcome back. And, I know what project you're talking about. Everyone probably that's listening to this knows what project you're talking about. I mean, you got Santos, who's, he's the loudest guy on the internet talking about it. So that's cool. No, that's cool. But okay, let's talk. That's a beautiful background history. Like that is so rich. And then your expertise and your knowledge in archery. Can I talk a little bit about you as the archer though? So are you a competitive archer? Were you, it sounds like did a bit of competition, but mostly hunting. Is that how I'm seeing it?
Yeah. So what, like a lot of us, I started out as a bow hunter.
Yep.
That's how I got a bow in my hand. I liked sports and competing. I wrestled my whole life. I wrestled in college, and I was a competitive person. So it was in Utah that I shot my first archery tournaments. That's where I started, finding the fun of, because traditional bow hunters, you're going to shoot tens of thousands of arrows in a year, and you might shoot, some guys shoot 2 at an animal that year. Some guys shoot 20, but it isn't 100 for most of us at an animal in a year. And you shoot tens of thousands or thousands at a target. So, at some point for many of us, archery for the sake of archery becomes as important. It did for me, as important as bow hunting, archery for the sake of doing archery. And so at Lancaster Archery, I had tournaments all around me. I started shooting IBO pretty regularly.
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time I was working at all the events, we would take a trailer. So I shot quite a few of the national field events. I shot quite a few NFAA events. So
and
there
this
was
all, sorry, if I can interrupt for a second. And what, excuse me, what category were you shooting in?
NFAA at the time was trad class. Yep. IBO, also I like to shoot traditional recurve class. That was a gap shooting class.
Okay.
I never shot. For field archery, I like barebow.
Okay.
And here, a couple of reasons are, field archery is a game shot from 5 meters to 50 meters. If you try to shoot that NFAA trad style, which means no moving your fingers on the string. Yeah. What that does is it makes the game less fun. It's kind of like, taking most of the clubs out of your golf bag and going and trying to play golf. So it just limits what you can do for field archery. So I love field archery. I love the distances.
Yep.
And I like doing it string walking. For 3D, for IBO and ASA, the target's 30 yards away. You don't have to, not string walking doesn't take the fun out of that game.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely does. Yeah.
So I enjoyed shooting string walking, or mostly shooting trad class, where it was one anchor point, one hook on the string. Yeah. Indoor, I shot NFAA trad class, which was no string walking, but USA Archery, you could string walk. So, that was just my personal way of enjoying each of those venues. But I shot a little bit of 3D, a little bit of tournament archery, but also, from 2010 to 2020, I was also at every single one of those events as a vendor, selling to everybody. So I couldn't always compete. And then, 5 years ago, when I started having babies, my practice just went down the drain, and I don't really shoot competitive anymore.
Yeah, that's the way it should be, though, right? I mean, the most important thing are your kids, obviously.
Depends. Some people make time for it. I'm not as efficient with my time, so I clearly am not somehow making time for it.
But you got 3, right? You got 3.
3 now, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have to count them? Yeah, they're 3.
Yes, 3. There's 3.
Dude, that I know. Even when I take my gear to do interviews and stuff like that at tournaments, it is hectic. I can't imagine what you're going through when you go with the whole thing, and it's part of your job, right? And being able to compete, and so that was tough to begin with, and now you got kids, and it's hectic for sure. So you've got a ton of experience. Are you coaching? What do you do with archery when you have time for archery?
What I did was, I was one of the last class to get the NFAA archery master coaching certification. Wow. So it was held at Fort Belvoir in Virginia, was the last group that got the master coaching class. So I coached a lot while at Lancaster Archery Supply, just basically training new people and helping people who were, coming up into competition. So what I was really good at was helping people pick the right bow, the right limbs, the right limb weight, and basically how to set up a bow for competition, or just as importantly, how to set up a specific arrow for competition. So what people don't get is, because your arrow is part of your aiming system, new people don't quite get that they're going to have 3, maybe 4 different sets of arrows that they're going to use through the season. So I would have one, dozen set up for 3D, another dozen arrows set up for target, another dozen set up for field, another dozen set up for indoor. So you might use the same bow and maybe switch limbs out in a couple of different games that you play, but you're almost always going to be switching arrows depending on what you're doing for that game. So I was really good because I'm sitting there at Lancaster Archery, the whole,
you got everything in front of you.
The whole candy store is all around me. And if people want to, find a different point weight that maybe not standard for that shaft, but gives them a little more weight, or I could help people put things together. I also knew what would break. I know what rests are not durable. I know what limbs, have more trouble than other limbs. So I was right in the middle of that. I did all of the warranty for a long time at Lancaster Archery. I warrantied every recurve product. I warrantied every ILF limb that was broken came through me and got recorded. So I know who makes good limbs and who doesn't.
You were on the reverse logistics side of things at Lancaster. That's pretty cool, man. That's a good job. That's a fun job. Did you have fun? You were having fun?
Like I said, it was the best. I mean, sitting here, you and I talking about these things is what it's like working with that group of customers. And it's that easy. We both have a certain, if you tell me where you're going to go and compete, in a couple of weeks, and I start asking you a few questions, I can, send you some arrows to try or whatever you want to do. It's something that me and my customers could get done together pretty easily with a few conversations. So it was a fun job.
We're going to have a conversation after I stop recording this on some a few things. I always like keep positive notes on everything, but hey, so with all that experience, someone who's just coming into the game, is struggling. What's a piece of advice that you like, one piece that, John, you would say that was like, hey, this helped me the most? Maybe it's accuracy, maybe it's consistency, maybe it's mental. It doesn't matter. It's one piece of advice you give someone.
So one main thing is, it's important to understand that if you read too much or listen to too much archery advice or archery talk, you can get yourself in the weeds pretty quickly. Yeah. And it's actually a lot simpler than that. There are a few key things, but a couple of the basics are, don't worry how you get to an anchor point, but get to an anchor point. So don't worry about, the physiology of it, right? Yeah. Don't worry about the physiology, but get aligned. So an anchor point is really about being aligned. So get aligned and then learn how to, put the pressure where it's supposed to be. If you can simply learn how to relax your string hand and your string forearm, and that comes from, if you get aligned, meaning get the elbow pointing opposite direction from the point of the arrow, point of the arrows on the target, you can get your back elbow 180 degrees away, and then learn how to relax your whole string hand and forearm and just, start to let shots happen. You don't need a degree in anatomy. You don't have to worry about, what muscles you're loading. Maybe someday that's worth discussing. But the truth is, get to anchor and sit there for a little bit, learn how to get comfortable at anchor. You're going to do well. The question I saw on your list of questions we were going to talk about is if there's one piece of advice, the piece of advice is that you have to learn how to hold at anchor and stay there momentarily. And the reason is if we take a top and spin a top on a table, it's got that centripetal force. And what that does is it's going to take a few moments and that top's going to stand straight up and steady itself.
Yeah.
And human bodies have kind of a gyroscope inside them that helps us to maintain our balance and walk around and not trip over our own feet.
Yeah.
What happens when an archer comes to anchor, we set our whole body into a bit of a wobble. As we go from here, we do a lot of work across our top. We get to anchor, your body gets into a bit of a wobble. And if you had an aperture or a sight, you could see that thing moving in front of you. But most of us as traditional archers, we don't have a sight, so we don't see that it's wobbling. Mm-hmm. But if you can get to anchor, feel anchored, stop moving your head, stop moving your arm, stop moving everything, and then count to 3.
Yeah.
That's it. If you can do that, you're going to reach great accuracy really quickly. And there's not a lot more you have to worry about in the beginning than just doing that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's fantastic advice. We do see snap shooters, and there'll be tons of conversation online about snap shooting and how they do it, and instinctive versus aiming, but I think that advice that you gave, just solid. Stay at anchor, get to anchor, stay there. Don't worry about the physiology. If I can paraphrase you, don't worry about how you get there. Just get there, stay there for 3 seconds, and let your body do this. It's amazing.
That's it. You'll do great. If that's all you know about archery, you'll do great. Another thing is that some of us get to anchor. Some people get to anchor, and they may be there. They may be holding, but they put some sort of a movement into, and it's all kind of a target panic thing. But some people will anchor, and they'll just keep kind of like leaning or moving.
Yep.
And what it's doing is it's preventing you from actually totally getting back and stabilizing it. So you got to get there, hold it for a moment. Just a 3 count is enough, and that can create accuracy. And if that's all you do.
I thought you were going to talk about, if you take a look at Dilly, when he pulls back, he's kind of a little he's shaking a little bit here, like as he goes. I don't know if you recognize that when John Dillinger, he's kind of shaking a little bit, then he lets go. But I always thought that, he's just trying to get in tune. He's trying to get that arrow tip to stay where it's supposed to be and not release.
Can I tell you something that Dilly does that most people don't recognize? Is that now we're going to get a little more technical.
That's fine. We got time.
But one thing is don't set up too deep. So one thing, what that means is if you really extend into your anchor point and you're too far in, at this point, you have no room to expand, and you lose some stability. What Dilly does, which is very good, and I coach to people, is it's not hard to set up slightly shallow. Yeah. And when you're shallow, you can actually use the correct part of your body, most of what's in your back, to then set your anchor and set your elbow from there to a good position. If you start way extended, you don't have any room to move, and you're really unstable. Dilly sets up short and then gets aligned from there. And I think that's a much more nuanced tip. But that's something I would teach somebody a little bit later. But John Dillinger sets up short and finds anchor, pivots around that short position to a good anchor point. but that's a way more stable place to be than being overextended immediately.
Yeah, I noticed that a little bit of coaching that we did. We had single string boot camp here in Ohio, and we're out talking to a lot of good people were out at that camp. That was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. A lot of people, and we had a lot of fun. If you ever get to go, I mean, it's anyone that's listening. It's not just about shooting, it's about getting to know people, and we had a lot of fun. Anyway, that being said,
I wish I had time to go to that. That looked like a lot of fun, and I would have liked to have been there.
Yeah, we had so much.
Anyway, sorry.
Anyway, no, it's good. And then so Joel Turner was there teaching it, and if he sets you up like here, and then he's like, keep pulling, and it's kind of funny because I'm not gonna take sides or anything like that. And then I was talking to Chrissy Lyons, who's a world record holder too, and Joel's an awesome archer. So he goes, she was saying to me, she's going, you can't pull your arrow tip back too much because you can't keep extending or can't keep pulling. At a certain point, you have to be like, okay, well, the tip of the arrow's got to be where you want it to be. And if you keep pulling back, it changes the distance and time, so you have to have a steady point. Like you said, get to anchor 3 seconds, right? But anyway, Joel was just saying, bring it back, keep pulling, and then, you get this natural release. But
yeah, I think it's semantic. I think he's trying to tell her to do what's correct, but
no, he wasn't talking to her. Sorry, he wasn't talking to her. She was talking to me independently on the range, and then I was talking to her. Yeah, there was so much information there, so I'm just trying to parse it. Yours sounds a little bit more like Chrissy's, but
yeah, you can't keep pulling, obviously, or you're going to pull yourself out of position. You're going to pull your arrow out of position. So basically the point is, don't stop pulling is more of the correct term. Okay. But also, that's semantic. I mean,
I'm not asking. We don't have to analyze it. I'm just saying that it's interesting that you get those two different perspectives, and I really liked your pull it back in the very beginning, especially for people who listen to this podcast. It's not really well, there's some good advanced archers that listen to this too, but a lot of they're new people to the sport, right? And what you did and all that time, I mean, honestly, Lancaster Archery, when you were there, those times you were there, that helped me get into the sport, and all that stuff that you did on TV. Again, it was exciting, helped me get to do this. Actually, I'm not gonna lie. We had one more question that we usually ask our guests, and that is, what equipment are you using currently? What's your current setup and what are you doing? But sounds to me like we're going to get a chance to talk about that in a couple of weeks. Is that correct?
Yep, exactly.
All right.
But I like longbows. I've got a bunch of them on the wall up here. They're beautiful, and everybody loves beautiful wooden bows. Yeah. What happens to a lot of us is when you shoot bows all year round, the advantages of shooting ILF bows that allow you to real quickly, change the limbs from shooting 3D in the summer to shooting, hunting in the fall, to shooting field archery. So I can't get away from shooting ILF style limbs. It's just convenient. I love making a good archery shot, making a pure archery shot. Mm-hmm. And, I feel like I can do that in the games that I play with archery by, having a basket full of limbs that I can kind of set up for that day for what I'm doing. So, that great feeling you get when you make good archery shots, or, you're out with your friends shooting 3D. You get that by setting up the limbs and the arrows. And, I have walls of bows like the ones you have behind you there on the wall. And I love those, but they just, they are what they are. Yeah. And if you're doing something different, a month from now, or you were doing something different in the summer, that bow doesn't change with you the way that, those of us that shoot archery all year long change. So you can have different bows to do that, but ILF bows are what I shoot because I like to play different games.
you're making a great point. So, I mean, getting an ILF bow, that's actually a tip for a beginner, right? I mean, yes, we all love wood bows. We all love the looks of them. They're not cheap. And you're investing a lot. And if you're a beginner, why are you spending that money up front? That's kind of my recommendation to most people is like, if you're going to buy a custom bow, don't buy it as your first, second, third, fourth, fifth bow. Some people get into the sport and they think, yeah, I'm only going to buy one bow and I'm done. Bullshit.
Yeah, right.
Bullshit.
Yeah. Or they get their first traditional bow and they hunt with it for 2 years. And then they put a lot of money down and they get their own custom bow with their name written on it. And they're pretty sure at that time it's going to be the last bow. Yeah. You know, they're going to use it for the next 10 or 15 years. And they realize literally the following season, they want another bow or something. And bows are funny that way. Like, I consider them almost, they just change the way your body pulls it. So you could have a set of arrows tuned. You've probably run into this. You shot all season last year shooting indoor, and you had arrows tuned perfectly. You shoot through the summer, you shoot through the fall, and you come back and you put the same arrow on the same bow, and it's not even close to tuned the way you had it the year before. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make any sense, but it's because you're a year older, your body's different, you're drawing the bow a little bit different, maybe your form changed a little bit different, but you know, bows seem to change on you when you put them down for a little while and pick them back up.
Yeah, we're not all Brady Ellison. You know, we're not we're not all robots. We're not all like, really, you know him, right? So is he a robot? Yeah. Is he Android or something like that? Or
he is the coolest guy. I remember the first time hanging out with him at an archery shoot. I think we were playing washers together. Like we had a cabin together in Texas for field nationals. And for a few years, Demmer and Brady and I would all group up and get a room or a house together for field nationals. And we did it a bunch of times. We have some really funny stories, but I remember I was drinking beer with Brady and we were playing washers, and I thought I could beat, an Olympian at a game first, and I couldn't because he's really good at everything he does. Yeah. And he beat me in whatever we did, but we did share beer. I think he drank all my beer though. But that's another thing I loved so much about Lancaster Archery was just the people I met, not just famous people like Brady and, I have a good friendship with him, but, just people who aren't famous who became like Santo, who became a close friend of mine. And now, those people just turn around and want to support you, support me at whatever I do. And I'm just so fortunate because I built a lot of great friendships while I was there. So.
Yeah, you're a good dude. You can see why people like you. And you're just pretty genuine, especially you come across really good on TV. So you're really good at that. So congratulations, man, on just being awesome for this long. And thanks for coming on the show. Like, I really do appreciate it. I like to keep it short. I think I could talk to you for another 4 hours, archery, obviously. But I'm going to get you back on. We've got you got some news that you're going to share with people, and I'm excited to help you out and support you in that way too. So again, thanks very much for stopping by.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you inviting me. Are you going to be at ETAR in a month? Do you think you're going to go?
You have to bring that up. Now I got to edit this out. Shit. No, I want to come. It's so hard to get there for me. I'm in Kansas. I'm in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
It is a pain. Like, you can't fly in, and then it's a super, I hate to say it's expensive, which it is for me to travel.
It is. Yeah.
Because I either got to rent a car or I got to get a car, and this gas is like ridiculous right now. So
I apologize. No, I understand because I wasn't sure if I was going to go, and then I was talking to the guys, and all of a sudden, boom.
A lot of people are going. A lot of people are going this year, and I feel bad. But I saw some. Not to complain, but I saw Eric was over at shooting the course last week, Eric Yost, and I don't know that he liked it, or was it him that said something? He said it was kind of the targets that need to get changed out or something like that. So I'm hoping that they do something really good.
It's tough. They put a ton of effort in it. And, if if you just ran, life is hard with COVID and everybody's kind of scrambling and it's probably hard to even find people to work for those guys right now. Yeah. So
I just hope it's as good as it was last. Was it last year? Were we there last year?
We were at Sawmill last year.
Okay. So it's at Denton Hill now. No,
I don't think so.
That's Sawmill last year. Is it Sawmill this year or no?
It'll be at Sawmill this year. Well, you better edit that if I'm wrong, but I assume it's at Sawmill this year.
It is at Sawmill. No, for sure. For sure. So if you're going to ETAR, look for John and get that story about him and Brady and Denver. See what's going on. That's like a not safe for work stuff. Probably. Look at, he's all red. Okay, good. Thanks very much. So John, if they want to get hold of someone who wants to get a hold of you, say hi. Yep. Where are you usually hanging out online?
So 2 places is Facebook is the easiest place. I have a million archery friends on Facebook. If you search my name, I'm sure it'll come right up because we probably have mutual friends if you have any interest in archery. So search my name on Facebook, Instagram too. And then that's the best way, Instagram and Facebook. I'm John Wert on Facebook and I'm John Wert with a J, John J Wert on Instagram. Look me up. And if you have any archery questions, I still answer them every day. So
awesome sauce, man. Thanks for supporting the community for so long. And I really appreciate it. All right, everyone, hunt the good stuff. We'll talk to you again soon. And thanks again, John. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Vic.